Let's start with Sam Caniglia.
Hey, Coach. So tomorrow you got the first day of MAC play. Obviously, in college sports, it's like the season actually begins when the league starts. What kind of challenge does the MAC bring to you on the pitch?
Yeah, I think the spring showed that every team is very competitive. There are truly no easy games. It's always pretty fine margins. So, looking at the quality of start that the conference has had, I think the RPI for the conference is very high again. I think fourth or fifth in the country right now. And you only have to look across the board. You've got obviously Akron have been ranked in the top 10. I anticipate they'll be ranked again here very, very soon. Bowling Green 17th in the country. NIU with only one loss on their record. To name but a few. So it's going to be a tough conference schedule. And again, traditionally speaking, knowing the success and the history of Akron's program, we're expecting a very, very tough game tomorrow night as well.
Next will be Liam Beelan.
Hi, Coach. Obviously, you pride your team on your defensive record, getting clean sheets and such. Akron have conceded 7 goals in 8 matches. So is there anything different that you have to do, preparing for this team and trying to score goals, or is it the same approach and the same mindset?
Yeah, I think it's much of the same in terms of the identity that we're trying to attack with, and the systems of play that we'll try and attack with will be no different to usual and to what's been effective for us. I do think we're facing a reloaded Akron team, a little bit of a different team in terms of personnel from maybe the spring, with a lot of attacking qualities themselves. So part of the danger we face tomorrow is if we're in possession, if we're attacking, that they have the potential, perhaps as good as anyone we've played this year, to break on the counter-attack. I think they pride themselves on being a good transition team, a high energy team similar to us, and that can make for a very entertaining game as well. So even when we're in attack and in possession, we'll need to be very aware of how they position themselves and making sure that should the ball turn over and fall to Akron, that we're ready to nullify those issues and nullify that threat as quickly as possible.
Back to Sam.
Coach, a recurring theme of this season has kind of been that chip on your shoulder about missing out on the NCAA tournament. I guess on a smaller scale, your only overtime loss of the season last year was to Akron. Again, like you said, a really strong opponent in the MAC. Is there another element of that kind of revenge factor when you face the Zips tomorrow?
Yeah, I hope so. I think we were really pleased with our performance at Akron. Some crucial moments in both penalty areas that didn't go our way, and I think that was the decisive element of the game back in the spring, was how we defended the penalty box and how we attacked theirs. But as far as possession, territorially, where the game was played, it felt as though we were the very dominant team on that night, and obviously disappointed to not come away with more from the game. So I hope the players feel like we owe them one in that regard, and that we need to avenge the defeat from last season, the loss from last season. But at the same time, it's a very, very different team that we will face, and obviously to an extent a different team that they will face as well. So we'll definitely take some of that and some of the tactics, having been having played them as recently as we have, into tomorrow night as well. But yes, it will be a new game. It will be a fresh start, but we should continue to have that chip on the shoulder. Likewise, not just on a smaller scale, but I don't mind saying we felt as though we were the best team in the conference last season, and yet it didn't correlate at the end of the regular season with us as the number 1 team in the conference. So I want us to have that chip on our shoulder. We've obviously been voted that in preseason. That would give you an indication that others felt we were maybe a little bit further ahead than what was reflected at the end of the regular season last year. So we should have a chip on our shoulder, not just because of the individual performance of Akron, but because of the final outcome of last year's regular season for us.
Kevin Kinder.
Coach, kind of along those lines, you've been moving up in the rankings, obviously getting a lot of notice across the country. A lot of times, though, you talk about focusing, on the process, what you're doing, getting there versus those end results. How do you balance that with your players, with your team? Because obviously they need to get good feedback for what they're doing, but you don't want them to get caught up in it.
Yeah, it's exactly that. It is a balance. It's about continuing to remain consistent from a game-to-game perspective in terms of how we approach a game and then review the game specific to the performance, but at the same time still taking confidence and encouragement from where we've placed ourselves after 8 games now, as obviously number 3 team in the country. So you want there to be some confidence, but you also don't want there to be that complacency or that level of content, because there's this attitude that we've arrived somehow. I've been fortunate enough to be at programs that have been ranked number 1 in the country, and again, the best thing you can do is be number 1 in the country at the end of the season, because that ranking lasts the longest. So we continue to reinforce that this has been a very, very good start, but is by no means the end when it truly does count, and continue to try and find that balance with this group of players through that process, that we continue to get better. Yeah, my ideologic view on this is that every game we can improve, every game we can get better from one to the next. If we continue to show humility and the work ethic that we have up to this point in the season, why can't Akron be our best performance of the season so far? It never works that way, obviously. There are ups and downs, but I do think you want to feel like there's a positive upward trend, because we are teaching, we're reinforcing, and we're refining what it is we do, regardless of outcome specific to the result. Of course, it helps to get those results and those wins, and to reinforce some of what we're trying to do, which again is another reason why I think we're in a very, very good position right now, very well placed, and ready for another challenge, and another big matchup with Akron tomorrow night.
Back to Liam.
Coach, looking at Akron's schedule thus far, a few common opponents between you two, RMU, Pitt, Ohio State, Marshall. Is that something that you look at, when you're scouting the team and their performances? Do you look to those common opponents, or is it the same as any other breakdown?
No, you can do. I think, it's now no secret in terms of what formation we're playing, and teams are ready for us in that regard. So sometimes we try to focus on if they've played against an opponent that plays a similar formation to us, quite honestly. But yeah, there are some comparisons that you can draw from. For example, Marshall was a recent opponent for both of us. Obviously, that was a game that they lost. So we want to see how they approached that game, how similar it may have been to us tactically, and exactly how that game played out. But it really depends. It can be quite contextual to the formation of opponents, and how many similarities we can draw to ourselves, as opposed to, we happen to play exactly the same teams or a number of the same teams, as you alluded to.
And go ahead, Sam.
Coach Doran got that award from the MAC for his good form as of late. I don't know if obviously you've seen him since that it came out. How's he feeling, and I guess what has contributed to his strong form so far?
Yeah, I hope he's feeling confident. I hope he takes some confidence from that, and really to the point of one of the previous questions, it's still about how can he continue to improve. I think we hope that we're starting to see with Joran specifically some of his best form, and still his best form yet to come, quite honestly. I think this last year across the world from a COVID perspective has made it very interesting. We really recruited Joran off of film and video that was over a year old, and when he showed up on day 1 this August, he hadn't played for a year. He hadn't played competitively for a year. So there were many players in that under those circumstances that were joining the program. So I think Joran has probably gone through that process and lived some of those disappointments just because he needed more time. He needed more time to adapt and adjust, get familiar with training each day and playing the volume of games that we have. Of course, as the natural goal scorer, which he is, you need to see the ball in the back of the net. He's now seen that happen 3 games in a row. So we feel like he's trending positively. But I think by his own admission and from what the staff have recognised in terms of his potential, there is still more to come as well. So yeah, if he buys into the philosophy and the kind of mantra of that humility and honest accountability of where he's playing, what his performances have been up to now, he knows he can still contribute even more to this program, which is incredibly exciting.
Okay, guys, anything else? I see you, Sam. Go ahead.
Last one for me, Coach. The kind of in a similar vein, piggybacking off of that, you have another strong striker who kind of plays in tandem with him in Ciro. Is it kind of a luxury to be able to switch them back and forth during a match like that, or is it more important to kind of nail in and get behind one guy?
I mean, it depends. It depends. I think Ciro has earned starts this season. He's earned the minutes that he's playing and has continued to perform well during this period, even though Joran's obviously been the one that's got the goals and got the starts. I hope it doesn't happen, but Joran could get injured tomorrow, and it could be Ciro's from the first minute to the last in that regard. So he needs to stay ready as well. Obviously, from an energy perspective, having the luxury of rotating between the two, not just in that position, but a number of positions, we believe has been a real strength of our season up to this point and will continue to be. But Ciro will need to make sure that he continues to perform at that level too. And quite honestly, Ciro can have a great week of training and earn that spot and take that spot off of Joran. And I think the great dynamic with those two is they're really good friends off the pitch. They celebrate each other's successes on the pitch in that regard. So I think Ciro understands where he is right now and has been happy for Joran. But when Joran comes off, I know that he wants Ciro to do well and to score as well. So that's the luxury. That's the luxury is that I have not just two players that are very, very good and very effective in that position, but they support each other and are great teammates for one another, even though they're direct competition for that position. That's the true luxury I have.